Next Fest 2022 has came and went, ladies and gentlemen, and I haven't seen the sun in 3 days. Some of the demos I played got me really excited for their full release, so I figured I would share my favorites with you guys because I beat Dark Souls, so I'm one of the greatest gamers, both in terms of skill and taste, clearly. Okay, first up we got Through the Nightmares, a 2D platformer that reminds me of Sekiro because it makes me want to die because it's a piece of shit, because I suck. Until I master the level and then it immediately becomes the best game ever made. The art style is simplistic, but at least for me, it was one of the biggest draws to the game. Mechanically, it's pretty unique. The platforming revolves around shrinking your character at specific times to interact with the environment in quite a few different ways. For example, these mushroom things that break if you're standing on them when you're big, but are safe to stand on when you're shrunk. Doesn't sound like they could be frustrating, but... so... Demo gets a 9 out of 10, fuck this game. Next up we got Hello Neighbor 2, the sequel to the mixed-reviewed Hello Neighbor. I honestly thought the first one was pretty underwhelming, but the sequel addressed the main issue I had, that being the lack of difficulty. Obviously this is only the demo, but I thought the puzzles were interesting, and the AI seems to be better than in the first game, at least slightly. The introduction of an NPC that's constantly after you creates an interesting twist on the genre, and adds a layer of difficulty that requires you to split your attention between avoiding the neighbor and solving whatever puzzle you're working on. The puzzles by themselves would be pretty easy, but the fact that you can't stand around trying to figure it out for too long at once is what provides the challenge. Is it the hardest puzzle game I've ever played? You tell me, fucko! But it's at least engaging enough to require some level of problem-solving skills. Which is good, because if painfully beating this shit taught me anything, it's that I don't possess much more than that. One thing I think would increase the quality of the game overall is increasing the punishments for getting caught by the neighbor, because right now all that happens is you lose a few items and you get placed outside the house, meaning you can kinda just brute force the game without really worrying about where he is, if you want to. Hello Neighbor 2 releases in a few months, and I will definitely be playing it on Game Pass. I just hope they expand on the neighbor's AI and the overall difficulty before release, but as it stands, the demo gets a 7 out of 10, replace this cat with a dog and it gets an 8. Okay, next up we got Wavetale, an atmospheric 3D action platformer where you play as this chick with a net that's basically fucking Jesus. The movement mechanics are super polished and feel satisfying to string together. I particularly like this helicopter move you can do, it's kind of fucking hilarious. The story isn't super interesting yet, but the gameplay picks up all of its slack, and more importantly, it's only the demo, so the story hasn't really made itself clear yet. This game sort of reminds me of Mario Odyssey, and I think if you're a 3D Mario fan in general, then this game's worth taking a look at. The art style's what made me check it out, but the gameplay kept me around. Demo gets a 7 out of 10. If the story ends up being interesting and they continue to expand on the movement mechanics, I could see giving the full release an 8. And last but not least, we got the game I'm probably the most excited for, Manor Lords. Manor Lords is a new city-building medieval strategy game that offers an extremely in-depth and sandboxy building experience, and on top of that, what the devs say is a well-fleshed-out tactical combat system. I didn't get to play too much of the game, unfortunately, so I didn't get to experience the combat, but the city building aspect alone is enough to get me excited for the full release. Graphically, this game is impressive. There's not much, if anything, in the genre that looks as good as Manor Lords does, and the FPS is pretty stable, at least from what I've seen. Obviously, that'll be rig dependent, but I was running it at the highest settings in 4K and rarely dipped below the 70 to 80 FPS range. Gameplay-wise, Manor Lords is one of those games that you have to get a fucking PhD for before you even start playing, so I can't speak too much to the overall quality, considering I didn't get to experience most of it. But from what I have played, I would say the game's worth keeping an eye on. Demo gets an 8 out of 10 because you start with a cow. And that's gonna do it for Next Fest 2022, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm sure there were plenty more amazing demos that I unfortunately didn't get to play. So if you guys have any recommendations for games I didn't mention, I would love to hear them in the comments. My goal with this YouTube channel is to eventually never see the sun again, so the more games I have to play, the better. But anyways, I'm gonna go lose some more solo queue comp games on Overwatch now, so yeah, I guess pray for my soul, and hopefully I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll be seeing you.